Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into this morning's video. We're going to be having a look at the historic winter of December 2010 in this video. Of course, I threw GaussWeatherVids.com open to you guys to give you your nominations for the years that you'd like me to do historic videos on while I'm recovering from my operation. We already did the first one that came out of the draw, which was 81-82. I hope you saw it yesterday. If you didn't, it's still sitting underneath this video here on the home page. It'll be going up on the historic pages as well. The second one that came out was from Chasm, and it was for November and December 2010. But although Chasm came out with this, many of you did want to see December 2010. A lot of entries went into the bag, so it was very likely that November and December 2010 was going to be pulled out. It just happened to be Chasm that came out, but there was a lot of different entries for 2010, so I'm sure you're very pleased to be seeing me doing this video today. Now, before I go on video, I just want to talk about the advertising. There may be a video ad sitting above my weather videos at GaussWeatherVids.com. I'm not sure if it's going to be there or not because I'm recording this video in advance, so I'm not sure quite whether the ad will be there. But if it is, then do please play it. You'll be supporting GaussWeatherVids.com by doing it. So let's start off with the sea surface temperatures for 2010, December 2010. And before I get on with it, actually, I just want to say that everything you see in this video is available on my links page. This sea surface temperature anomaly is available on my links page. In a minute, you're going to see some charts there coming from the historic archive at weathercentral.de. We've got a fantastic archive there going all the way back to January 1871. You can get to that from my links page. We're also going to see some data from the UK Met Office in terms of the Central England temperature, and you'll be able to see all of that on my links page as well. So go to the link page if you want to see anything you see in this video. You'll be able to get to it from the links page. And I just want to mention Trevor Harley. I couldn't have done this video or yesterday's video, the 81-82 video, without Trevor Harley's fantastic personal weather website. He's got an amazing catalogue of information on that website. In some cases, there's information going right the way back in terms of British weather to the Middle Ages, would you believe me, at 1100s. A wonderful, wonderful website, and do please check it out when you get the chance. You can while away many happy hour at the Wet Central Archive. You can also while away many happy hour at Trevor Harley's personal website. You can find it on my links page. I do recommend it. It is a wonderful, wonderful website, and as I say, I couldn't have done this video or yesterday's 81-82 video without it. A lot of the information you hear in this video has come from Trevor Harley's personal website, so I do have to give heads up to that. So I want to have a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies first of all for the period at the start of December 2010. Actually, this is the anomaly for the 12th of December 2010. There's a couple of interesting things. There's a very strong La Nina going on. I think that becomes important as we go into the latter stages of the winter. It explains partly the flip that occurred. And it's also a very good tripole in the Atlantic. We've got the warm, cold and warm bands there, warm in the tropics, cold in the mid and warm around Greenland. That very much typifies what you would expect to see with a negative. And ignore this cold water around the British Isles. That's shallow water. It doesn't really matter what the sea surface temperatures are doing there. That's just a reflection of the weather. It was a cold autumn really through 2010, and that explains that. But it's this deep water in the mid-Atlantic that's important, particularly around the tropics and in this mid part of the Atlantic going up towards the eastern seaboard of the States, and again to the south of Greenland. Cold, warm bands, a very, very classic negative NAO signal there, and that's one of the things that I look at in all my seasonal forecasts of wind traction. I look to see whether we're going to get a tripod, whether we could get a tripod. If we get the tripod, that does very much indicate that there should be some cold weather through the course of the winter. So let's start off in November then for 2010, and we start the month on a very mild note here. This is the 4th of November 2010. We've got high pressure sitting to the south, we've got low pressure sitting to the north, we've got this westerly wind coming in across the country, a very mild and balmy westerly wind. In fact, it's a very mild start to the month, and in London on the 4th we recorded 19 Celsius, very warm day indeed on the 4th of November, and that was just really the last vestiges of the warmth from the autumn that was going away. The rest of the month really did see a gradual decline in the temperatures, and as we get through to the end of the month, then the severe cold begins to hit us. So as we move through to the 7th of November, we're starting to pull the heights out into the Atlantic here. We're losing the heights to the south of the country, and we're beginning to move those heights into the Atlantic with high pressure starting to show signs of a jet stream already beginning to move a little bit further south. This isn't particularly cold, but it is cooler than it was right at the start of the month. Going further on beyond that, things start to get very interesting. We get this very deep area of low pressure developing to the northwest of Scotland, 960 millibar area of low pressure, with the high pressure again going further out into the Atlantic. And notice the black line here, that's indicating the jet stream. That's beginning to become a line northwest to southeast, northwest southeast alignment in the jet stream. That's just the signs that the pattern is starting to become unusual. And what happens with this low pressure, instead of taking its normal course into Scandinavia, it starts to move south across the country. It's brought some very wet weather, but it's what's happening with the low pressure that's interesting, because it's beginning to pull the winds in from the east. We're beginning to get a bit of a build of high pressure already starting to develop over Scandinavia. And as we go through to the 10th of November, that low pressure has moved away to the southeast. So that's an unusual track for that low pressure to take from the northwest of Scotland down into northern France. Quite unusual to see low pressure taking that sort of track, but when it does, it's an indication that things are just becoming unusual with the atmosphere. The atmosphere is not running as you would normally expect it to from west to east. Things are moving northwest to southeast, and as I say, that's quite difficult. That's quite different to what we would normally see. But this period isn't particularly cold. It isn't particularly cold. It's colder than the start of the month, but we've got temperatures in this sort of period into the mid to upper single figures, so around 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 degrees. Not particularly cold, but perhaps colder than it should be for that period in November. Now, as we go through to the middle of the month, everything started to become rather slack here across the country. The gradients are becoming slack, but there was more rain in some parts of the country, a little bit of flooding in places as well. But again, it's the jet stream that's unusual. The jet stream is running to the south of the country now on this black line. It's going to the south and to the southwest. And again, the alignment is still generally northwest to southeast. And notice we're just starting to show signs of trying to build high pressure up over Scandinavia. And as we go through towards the 16th and then on into the 17th, that starts to become more evident really, but we start to build that high pressure over Scandinavia with another area of low pressure starting to try to come in from the Atlantic on the 17th of November. And this low pressure did produce quite a bit of flooding actually in the west and the southwest around Cornwall around the 16th, 17th, with this low pressure being blocked. The weather became slow moving. There was quite a bit of flooding down across there. The high pressure, as I say, is building over Scandinavia, and this is really starting now to lay the foundations of what's going to happen. So as we move through to the 18th, that low pressure is really being blocked around Iceland. The high pressure is taking control of the pattern over Scandinavia, 1035 millibars. This is a classic sort of battleground scenario with the low pressure and the high pressure away to the northeast. And the high pressure starts to win the battle as we go through to the 20th. That low pressure begins to slip away to the south. We're ridging this high pressure in from Scandinavia and starting to retrogress it, I should say, over towards Iceland and Greenland. Now, retrogression means that the flow is moving from east to west, as opposed to zonal, which is what we typically get in the British Isles, which is west to east. So we're retrogressing the high from Scandinavia out towards Iceland and Greenland. This is definitely signs of big trouble in the atmosphere. Now, the upper air temperatures on the 20th of November, not particularly cold. It was cold because we've got an easterly flow. It's pretty raw, a dull, damp sort of weather, but not particularly cold. But -5 isotherm here is well away to the north, but just keep that in mind how warm it is relatively over the continent in terms of the upper air temperatures, because we're going to come to some charts later on that's going to show how quickly that changes. That's the 20th of November, and relatively mild conditions in the upper atmosphere over much of Europe. As we go through to the 22nd, well, now we're starting to bring down some very cold air. We really are starting to get a bit of a freeze beginning to take place as we go through to the 22nd. Temperatures are starting to drop away as this high pressure really starts to get going around Iceland and Greenland. This low pressure over northern Italy is interesting. Watch what happens as we go through to the 23rd of November. That low pressure deepens over Germany. We've got high pressure blocking up over Iceland and Greenland. We're starting to squeeze the ice bar, starting to squeeze the air down from the northern latitude, starting to pull that cold air down into the continent. This low pressure becomes a major feature in the Baltic Sea as we go through to the 24th of November. Very unusual pattern this for November, with this low pressure deeply in the Baltic, all of this blocking around Greenland and Iceland, and yes, we're pulling in this bitterly cold east or northeasterly wind. So the temperatures are really starting to fall away now. We're dropping down more or less to freezing across many parts of the country as we go into the 24th, 25th, starting to bring heavy snow into some northern parts of the country as well around this period, and we're starting to get some severe frost beginning to develop also, with some pretty low daytime temperatures as well. And things just get colder and colder then as we go on in towards the latter stages of the month. And this final period of the month really was severely cold, unusually cold for November, with the daytime temperatures staying around freezing all day from this day, from the 27th. Some very severe frosts indeed beginning to take place, with temperatures by night on the 27th into the 28th falling as low as -18 in some places. That's incredibly cold for November. -18 really is unbelievably cold, and by day we're also struggling to get those temperatures coming above freezing as we get through to the 27th, 28th. Temperatures are struggling to rise much above -6, -7, would you believe, by day in some places. And there's heavy snow falling as well, more particularly in the north. Not too much snow yet in the south, but heavy snow in the north, with this very, very cold east to northeasterly wind blowing in. But the temperatures will really be main thing about this period, with this low pressure sitting to the south of the country, high pressure sitting to the north. Temperatures on this day, the 28th where I am, didn't get above -2 degrees. That's very unusual for the end of November, or for any time in November, but it is an unusually cold sort of spell of weather going on at the end of November. I recorded a minimum in the early hours of the 28th of -10, the lowest 14 Fahrenheit, the lowest November minimum temperature I've ever recorded since I started keeping weather records back in 1993. And I say these sort of temperatures were widespread across many parts of the country, going down as low as -18, -16, -17 in many, many places. And by day the temperatures were struggling really to get above -5, -6 across quite a number of areas where we've got freezing fog going on. As I say, I've also got snow falling, and around the Dundee region there's some very heavy snow around the 27th, 28th with this easterly wind. Temperatures around Dundee, snowfall around Dundee, actually cut the city off for a time in some places. There was a foot of snow falling with that east or northeasterly wind. So very unusual weather patterns as we go into November, severely cold, and actually the central England temperature for November 9, 2010 was the coldest since 1993, unusually cold November. But it really is the last stages of November that causes that. The first bit of November is actually quite mild. But this is how we end November, with this easterly wind blasting. Follow the isobars back, they're going all the way back to Siberia, with the low pressure to the south and the high pressure to the north. Well, this is how we start December 2010, the historic December of 2010. It's similar to how November finishes: high pressure blocking to the north, low pressure to the southeast, easterly winds screaming in. Now, what's interesting about this month is that although it was severely cold, we're going to see the central England temperature, CT, at the end of the month. It was a very severely, exceptionally, can't emphasise it enough, amazingly cold month. The coldest minimum temperature of the month actually occurs on this day, the 1st of December, and it was minus 21.1 degrees at Outnahara, recorded in the early hours of the 1st of December. So, although the rest of the month was severely cold, we actually didn't get a minimum as cold for the rest of the month, and presumably for the rest of the winter, than occurred on the 1st of December 2010, so that is quite unusual. But this first week of December 2010 was very, very cold. We had these easterly winds screaming in across the country. This low pressure here across northern France produced some pretty heavy snow down in the south and the southeast, I think on the 2nd of December. But it was a very, very cold month, and a very, very cold start to the month, I should say. And certainly temperatures were struggling to get above freezing widely. There was snow showers in many areas. Snow was falling, and on the 2nd and into the 3rd, 4th, we do have those temperatures staying below freezing all day in many places. I recorded a maximum temperature on the 3rd of December of minus 3 degrees. I say those sort of temperatures were very widely spread across the British Isles, really struggling to get above freezing with severe nighttime frost as well. Now, as we move through towards the 4th and the 5th, we actually get a little bit of a thaw taking place, and the reason that happens is, I'll go back to it, we just start to bring in more of a slightly Atlantic influence. We're still in a very block setup. The NAO, North Atlantic Oscillations, through the floor. We've got the high pressure around Greenland, the low pressure around the Azores, but we're just bringing the air up from the Atlantic very slightly. So although it was still cold around the 4th and the 5th, those temperatures did lift up just enough to produce a very slight thaw, but it didn't last very long. The freeze came back then as we go through in towards the 6th and the 7th. We re-establish those northerly winds coming down across the country. This period actually saw the lowest temperatures that I recorded through December 2010. The early hours of the 7th of December, this day, I recorded a minimum temperature of minus 12, and again those sort of temperatures were widely spread across many parts of the country, temperatures into the minus double digits for many places. The hoarfrost was incredible during this period as well. I remember there was a lot of freezing fog around where I am in Northamptonshire, and that produced some incredible rime and hoarfrost on the trees. Some really beautiful scenes actually, with frost actually forming through the day, something very unusual as well. I remember frost ice needles did form through the day on the 6th of December actually. There wasn't that much frost to start off with, but the fog came down and the ice needles formed. Really quite unusual, quite beautiful to see that happening through the course of the day. But this was a very cold opening first week to December 2010, one of the coldest for a long, long time, severely cold. Here's the upper air temperatures, just showing that, yes, those temperatures were widely below minus 5 in the upper atmosphere, which is the minimum for snow, but not severely cold actually, despite the fact that it was severely cold on the surface. In the upper air, it wasn't severely cold, and the reason that it was so cold on the surface is that the cold has gone on for so many days, we're just generating that low level dense cold air. Now, as we go through towards the 8th, 9th and 10th, we start to get a moderation of the cold. So by the time we get through to the 10th, we're in a milder southwesterly flow, and this is actually the mildest period of the month really for many parts of the country. Through the 9th, 10th, 11th, we do see a thaw of the snow, but it doesn't last too long, but it's just as moderation, and we needed it really, because what was to come, as bad as it had been up to then, what was to come was even worse. So as we go through to the 12th, well, we're starting to get high pressure centred more or less over the country. Again, look how it's trying to reach north though. It's desperately trying to get back towards Greenland. That's an interesting signal for what's going to happen. But this period through the middle of the month, the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, wasn't too cold. It was pretty chilly under this high pressure, but it's normal British winter fare with temperatures really hovering around 3, 4, 5 degrees. Pretty cold, some frost at night, but nothing really too bad. But as I say, things were going to change, and what I want you to think about now is you're probably going to witness one of the most severest in terms of synoptic patterns events that can occur in the British Isles. This is really really unusual stuff, what happens next, and what you're going to witness is very extreme sort of weather patterns for this country. So on the 15th of December, we've got this high pressure sitting just to the west of the country. Notice this low pressure up to the far north of Greenland. That's the polar vortex. I want you to see what happens next, because as we go through to the 16th, whoosh, the high pressure has shot up to Greenland. 1,055 millibars area in South Greenland, 1,075 millibars in central Greenland. This is a proper area of high pressure as well. The high pressure has shot up there, and that low pressure is forming to the north of the country. It's forming the polar vortex. We've got an active cold front coming down across the country, introducing much colder air, and as we go through towards the 16th with the upper air temperatures, we see that those the severely cold upper air temperatures are lurking just to the north. You can almost hear the theme from Jaws there as that low pressure sits to the north with that severely cold upper air. You're going to imagine what's going to happen next. Yes, that's all going to flood southwards as this low pressure develops around Scandinavia. We're pushing that severely cold air down across the country with this incredible blocking area of high pressure up to the north and the northwest of the country. So that cold air is really blasting down across the country. Look at the -10 ice firm coming down over the British Isles, and as we move through to the 18th, well, look at that. What's basically happened here is that the polar vortex has collapsed and is sitting over the British Isles. We've got all of this blocking up to the north around Greenland and going to the north of Scandinavia, but this polar vortex is more or less sitting over the top of the country on the 18th of December. An incredibly, I can't emphasize this enough, an incredibly unusual occurrence to see that happen. The polar vortex being pushed south out of the Arctic into the mid-latitudes with a proper blocking area of high pressure sitting over Greenland. That's very extreme sort of weather patterns. That's the kind of thing that is talked about on the day after tomorrow, actually. Very strange sort of weather patterns. As we move through towards the 19th, well then we're firmly locked in that severely cold weather. Very low pressure producing copious amounts of snow across many parts of the country. High pressure is up to the north. We're bringing in this easterly wind to the north of Scotland. Elsewhere the winds are quite slack because the gradients are slack, so it's severely cold. We're getting severe nighttime frost going on. Temperatures again falling into the minus double digits in many places. By day temperatures are staying around -3, -4, -5 degrees quite widely. There's snow falling, there's freezing fog as well. As we move through towards the 20th, well again the pattern is well and truly locked in. Severely cold weather, heavy snow falling in many parts of the country as well. Going through to the 22nd, then we're starting to get a weather front actually sitting across the country, and that became active and producing quite heavy snow across England and Wales, in particular where I'm in central England. The 22nd of September did get some heavy snow. I was one of the few forecasters in this region to go for that. I was quite proud of myself for doing it. Yeah, there was quite a bit of snow falling. But this weather front actually introduced some slightly less cold air into the south. So as we go through to the 23rd and the 24th of Christmas Eve, I remember it quite well. There was a little bit of annoyance from some of you in the southeast that the snow was thawing away because that weather front just was enough to introduce some slightly less cold air off the North Sea, but it was pretty cold really across many parts of the country. Up in the north, we're firmly locked into severely cold temperatures still, and that severe cold did come southwards over Christmas. The Christmas of 2010 was incredibly cold. There was widespread snow laying across the country, deep snow cover, deep and crisp and even, and as the weather front and that easterly wind clears away into the continent and this high pressure forms over that snow cover, well then you've got the recipes for severely cold air, and both Christmas Day and Boxing Day were severely cold, with temperatures in many places staying several degrees below freezing all day, into the minus double digits again by night. Widely temperatures minus 10, minus 11, minus 12. Icicles in this period over this Christmas were incredible where I am. Some incredible icicles, because we had that little bit of a thaw around the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Well, not really a thaw, but just a little bit of dripping from slightly moderated cold air. But as the severe freeze came back over Christmas Day and Boxing Day, well, the icicles that thaw were absolutely amazing. I doubt I'm going to see icicles like that many times in my lifetime, to be honest. And this severe cold that happened over Christmas was enough to wipe out all of my Brussels as well. They died in the severe cold that happened over Christmas, as did the purple sprouting broccoli. All the plants in the garden were killed off. But it was worth it, I suppose, really, to have such a memorable Christmas. I called it, when I did my weather for the week ahead thoughts on the weatheroutlook.com, I called it a Dickensian Christmas, and that's exactly what it was. The snow cover laying deep and crisp and even. The temperatures staying well below freezing. One of the most special, sort of magical Christmases that I think I'm ever going to live through. And I'm sure many of you feel that way about this Christmas of 2010. We won't live through many Christmases like this. I'd be surprised if we do, really. So we've got those memories of Christmas 2010. Really magical, special, sort of Dickensian Christmas. But this is coming to the end of the cold weather now. The high pressure is beginning to collapse to the south. The low pressure is starting to form in the Atlantic, and inevitably for the British Isles, eventually the cold can't go on forever, and inevitably as we go through to the 27th, the mild air starts to move in, and by the 28th we're all in a milder airflow. It's still pretty cold, but it is milder. It's getting a thaw going on, a lot of low cloud, gloomy, damp sort of weather with a lot of fog, but the temperatures are lifting up as we go through towards the end of the year. And this is how we end 2010, with this area of high pressure sitting over the country. Much milder upper air temperatures associated with that, a lot of low cloud, mist and fog, and temperatures around 3, 4, 5 degrees, so still pretty chilly, but certainly nothing like as cold as it was. And then really that's the end of the cold weather. We do try to get it cold again as we go through into the start of January. We've got the Greenland high still going on there, but everything is aligned a little bit differently now, whilst we're still generally quite chilly in January 2011. Things are aligned differently, so although we've blocked the NAO is still negative, most of the air is still coming in off the Atlantic, and certainly as we go through the month we do start to see those temperatures really start to push up. By the 12th of January we're into this southwesterly flow, and that's really the end of it then. As I explained in yesterday's video, very often when you get these cold sort of starts to winter, severely cold weather in December, often after Christmas it'll go and it never comes back, and in 2010, 2011 that's really pretty much what happens with westerly winds becoming more and more established as we go through January. The polar vortex forming there up over Greenland, reforming over Greenland, and as we go through in towards February it's going to become very much milder across the country, and that's how we go into the 5th of February. High pressure to the south, the low pressure seen to the north, and then we get that incredible April as well, which was very, very hot. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but April 2011 was really warm, and it was as extreme in the terms of warmth as December was in terms of cold. So that's unusual how that happened as well. But we had that very severe cold in December, and then April turned out to be as extreme the other way as December. Anyway, have a look at the Central England temperature for December 2010, just see how it rates historically. Well, the Central England temperature came in at minus 0.7. That is absolutely unbelievable. And if we see how that rates in terms of 1981, here is the Central England temperature for 1981, December 1981, 0.3. So it was substantially over a degree, nearly a degree and a half colder than the very extremely cold December 1981. And when was the last time we had a December as cold as this? minus 0.7. When was the last time we got as cold as that? Well, we have to go right way back through the Central England Temperature Index to this year, 1890, which had a Central England temperature in December 1890 of minus 0.8 degrees. So it was only 0.1 of a degree off the all-time coldest December on record, going back to 1659. And if things had happened just very slightly differently, say if we'd have maybe had the cold starting a day or so later and ending a day or so later, I think that record from 1890 would have gone, and we'd have had the coldest December in the entire Central England Temperature Index going back to 1659. What an amazing occurrence that would have been. But to be just 0.1 of a degree off the coldest December since 1659 in 1890 was absolutely incredible. It was a really historic December. It would be first time that any month had come in below freezing since February 1986. Very unusual situation. December 2010 is a truly historic month. I'm glad I've had an opportunity to do it. I'm glad you've had an opportunity to see this, to see what a unusually historic, severely cold and extremely cold month it was. I hope I've not rambled on too long. Hope you found the video in some aspects interesting and informative. As I say, thanks very much to Trevor Harley, who gave me a lot of information from his website for this video. I couldn't have done it without him, or yesterday's video either. Hope you've enjoyed these videos. With a bit of luck, and if everything's gone okay with the operation, I'll be back tomorrow with a live weather video, so come back for that. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.